the language is not English in the country that you're thinking about moving to, it would be obviously helpful to learn the language. So get a move on that, you know.
Welcome to El Cafecito Travel Talks with Tony Lloyd. Each episode, Tony sits down with travelers, expats, creatives, and community voices from across Latin America and beyond, sharing stories of travel, culture, connection, and the journeys that shape us. So grab a cafecito or a tea and enjoy the conversation.
Welcome back, everyone. So today I have a guest with me.
My name is Azim from Ireland. I'm 27 years old and I'm currently working at an American international school in Colombia. Yeah, specifically the city of Valledupar.
Okay. Azim, this is a travel podcast. So one of the things that people always ask me, what sort of things can I do to fund my travel? How could I do that? So one of the things that I usually recommend to people is looking for an international job to get involved with the culture. So how long will you be in Colombia? What does your contract look like?
The first year that I've completed, it's been 1 year contract, and I've renewed another 1 year contract before leaving now. So I'll be there for another year at least.
Give us a little bit of backstory. What was life like? Where in Ireland are you from? What were you doing before you decided to take this leap of faith?
I'm from Dublin, the capital. I'm a teacher by trade. I guess the reason why I wanted to look abroad was a mixture of a few factors coming together. Number one is I love travelling. Like you said, an international job gives you the opportunity to kind of combine work and travel in one. And I think I've hit the jackpot in terms of international schools, being a teacher. You get the opportunity to live in different countries. You have a lot of time off built in, in the calendar. So there's opportunity for travel there as well. Another thing was as well, back home, the living costs are very, very high, as is common in a lot of the world at the moment. I think if I was living in Ireland still, I'd probably be living with my parents, and at 27, I'm not too keen on that, So
no one wants to do that.
No, so that was a push factor for me, as well as travel being a pull factor, So those two things coming together, I think as well, while I'm young.
Why did you choose Colombia, and why did you choose Valledupar?
I get asked this question all the time. It wasn't even 100% in my hands, to be honest. Mm-hmm. As somebody just entering the international school scene, it was a case of beggars can't be choosers. Colombia is what came up for me. But I came close to getting jobs in Cameroon, Morocco, for example, so it could have been anywhere. I do consider myself in a position where things have worked out, because even if it wasn't entirely in my hands to get a job in Colombia, I've always had a fascination with Colombia as a country, South America, Latin America, that whole sort of region of the world in general. So things worked out for me in a great way. I consider myself very lucky.
Okay, perfect. Could you describe what does a typical day look like in Valledupar?
So it's in the north of Colombia, northeastern Colombia. Culturally, we are part of the Caribbean region. You can see that clearly in the culture, but we aren't actually by the sea. We're about 3 or 4 hours away from the coast. We're also relatively close to the Venezuelan border. Up in that region of the country as well, in the north, the weather is super hot all the time. It's about, mid-30s Celsius, day in, day out, all times of the year. There's no real variation in seasons or anything like that. It's a city of about 600,000 people, so the music of vallenato comes from Valledupar, which is, arguably one of the biggest musical exports of Colombia. It's synonymous with Colombian music culture around Latin America. I think it's cool that it's kind of stumbled onto that sort of thing, the home of vallenato music I live in. It's kind of cool to say, I didn't even know what vallenato was before I moved to Colombia, so.
Okay, and so now you're a vallenato connoisseur. You're a connoisseur in vallenato music.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite artist?
Favorite artist? I suppose I have to say Silvestre Dangond. I attended his concert during the festival there, the annual Vallenato Festival. I attended that concert, it was great. He has a property as well in the city, so he's a bit of a local hero as well.
Okay. What does a typical day in Valledupar looks like for you? What time do you get out, go to school and so forth?
We start kind of early at the school. We have to be there at 6:30 a.m, which is very different from back home. We have 2 breaks, 6 class periods a day.
What do you teach at school?
So I teach world history.
And at the school that you're teaching at, all the classes are taught in English?
So some are in English and some are in Spanish. That way the kids kind of, they really are growing up bilingual academically as well.
When was a moment when you were like, I'm not in Ireland anymore?
I've got 2 things. Number one would be kind of obvious, would be the power cuts, which are a big feature of, developing nations in general. So yeah, that's been something obviously new to me and a big signal that I'm not in Ireland anymore, and in fact I'm in a very different country, very different part of the world, not even in Europe, you know. And especially it's difficult in Valledupar as well when the power cuts hit, because we rely on AC a lot. It's quite torturous at times, and they've come in waves, you know, so that's one thing, the power cuts. Another thing I would say, the fact that when driving around at night time, we don't stop at red lights out of safety. You know, I remember sitting in the car with my friend, one of my good friends, he's Colombian, and he was explaining that to us. And everybody would just do this thing where, you know, they don't stop fully, they slow down where they're comfortable enough to check if there's any cars coming. And if there's no cars coming, we just keep going, but we don't actually stop. So obviously that's, again, super, super new to me.
Okay. What part of the culture did you find that you really adapted to? What's something about the Colombian culture that you're like, oh, I really like this, I can stay with this one forever?
It would be the massive culture around music and dance, you know. I am somebody who likes to, you know, engage in that sort of stuff, have fun, dancing and all that stuff, but obviously there in Colombia, in South America, Latin America in general, it's a big part of the fabric of society and culture there to a whole new level. Colombian culture for the first time, it was kind of right up my alley. It was easy for me to actually just, you know, say, this is great, this is a lot of fun, and I want more of this, you know.
Okay. And what has been something that's been really a struggle for you? What's been like one of the hardest things for you to adapt to?
So I don't know if this is, well, maybe it is an aspect of culture, yeah, because it's got to do with language. You're probably familiar with you know, the type of Spanish they speak up there in the north of Colombia, Caribbean Spanish.
Yes.
Very, very difficult for, I guess, natives as well sometimes, but especially non-natives. I, as a student of the language, you know. So coming to Colombia in the north, that's been a big challenge, you know. Just adjusting my ear to it, trying to keep up. That part of the culture, the way they speak, has been somewhat of a barrier in some instances where I can't, you know, I feel maybe not confident enough to participate in the group, in a social setting, to fully immerse myself in these social settings where they're speaking in that way, and it's tough to even understand what they're saying. You know, to have a conversation with somebody, you need to at least understand what they're saying.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You can't really chip in if you don't even know what the other person is saying. So that's been a real stumbling block. It is slowly getting better, of course, but that's a big thing for me. That's a big...
Has there been a time where you've caught yourself sort of judging something based on your Irish eyes? What was that like?
Yeah, something that comes to mind relates to, you know, my professional sphere at work. I think, well, something that is very evident here in Colombian culture and Latin American culture as well is the role of physical contact in relationships, right? And long story short, I've seen many times at work where there's in the teacher-student relationship, that physical contact still comes true. It's still a feature, you know. I've seen, you know, I teach 9th and 10th grade, which would be around ages 14 to 16. I've seen, you know, students and Colombian teachers at work, they would interact in a way that is, you know, in my view, super personal. There's a lot of physical contact, and especially as well between even male teachers and female students, which you're probably familiar with back home in Ireland, other countries in, you know, that sort of
Western world.
The Western world, yeah. It's a big no-no, you know. Like, I can't even imagine myself putting my hand on the shoulder of a student, never mind embracing them, hugging them. So that was a big thing that was like, wow, that's kind of strange for me. But at the same time, like, I understand as well that this is all part of the cultural exchange that I'm embarking on by living in a different country that's so far from home. And so, you know, I caught myself kind of judging it as in like, that's weird, that's strange, that's, you know, how are they doing that? But then, you know, I check myself and I'm like, okay, I'm in Colombia, this is how things work here. I'm not going to judge, I'm going to keep an open mind. And again, that's the purpose of traveling as well. So I think that would be a big thing where I was kind of judging initially through, you know, an Irish lens, so to speak.
I could see that.
Yeah, but ultimately coming to terms with this is completely normal to them. This is their norm, their way of doing things. They don't see it the same way as we do. There's no sort of, you know, negative connotations with that sort of carry-on, and it's up to me to adjust to that as well, because you start to learn that that's my view, but again, it works differently here. There's no sort of negative connotation at all. It's completely fine, and so let's get on with it, yeah.
Okay. With that being said, what is one thing that you think that people in Ireland could learn from the Colombian culture?
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into that as well. Maybe as well, do you know what? I think it's an interesting question, because Irish people in general, for non-Latin Americans, we are quite similar to Latin Americans, if that makes sense, in terms of being in terms of being very social and outgoing, you know. Mm-hmm. Say, for example, I've travelled to other parts of Europe, say Scandinavia, say Germany. They're a bit more standoffish and cold, whereas Irish people are more warm and socially open, and that, I think, is something that resonates to me in the Colombian culture, where we're very much in common. Obviously, as well, there are more historical ties as well with religion, you know, Catholicism being another kind of link between the two areas. So I actually see a lot of similarities between the two nations. It's kind of cool to see that, and I appreciate that. In terms of something that we could definitely learn, again, maybe the role of dance. It's not just people going out and having a laugh. Mm-hmm. It's a massive part of the identity here that we really don't get in Europe, you know. In Europe, people kind of go out to a bar or a club, they'll bop around to the music and that's it. But here, it's like everybody actually knows how to dance. They know the techniques, they know a range of different styles as well. And it's like, it's really eye-opening to me to actually have dance as a massive part of culture rather than just something that's fun to do, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think that can be something that we can kind of incorporate into Ireland, you know. That would be cool in my eyes.
Okay. How many other Irish teachers are there at the school?
There's none, and I'm the first as well. There's been none before, so.
Okay. And with the other foreigners that you're working with, what does that look like? Because you're going through not only the cultural exchange with the Colombians, but tell us a little bit about the cultural exchange you're going through with your other teachers. What's that like working with, people from the US and other areas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the majority of other international hires are from America. I see myself as the only Irish person in the school. In some cases as well, especially for the Colombians, the only Irish person they'll have met. I see myself as the representative of my nation a bit more, you know. And again, even in the backdrop of, you know, the American community there, when it comes to issues of language, for example, because that's a big thing, you know, whether it's Spanish or English or, you know, we're a school that's big on English education. We have very good grades across that sort of thing. As I said, the students are bilingual. I'm bringing a different flavour that's not been there before because, you know, most Colombian kids are being exposed to the American teachers, American media and all that stuff. So again, I kind of see myself as fulfilling a role that is very useful for them, kind of broadening their horizons in that way with the English language.
Have you had a moment where there was a language, even with your US counterpart, where you might have said something and they interpreted it a whole different way or vice versa?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what I was also approaching, like the issue of cultural exchange, even with my American counterparts, right? Even though we speak the same language, it's a very different form of English we have in Ireland, right? And I remember my first day in the school arriving as a new teacher. I was given the microphone to introduce myself. So I was introducing myself, what my name is, what subjects I'll be teaching, general feelings about, you know, working with you guys, being a member of the staff, all this. But I was so nervous I'd, you know, not only spoken in Irish English, but super fast as well. Mm-hmm. So I remember the look on the face of the director who's American, and I could tell she was puzzled, and she was like, "Oh, thanks, Azim, and we have your accent to get used to. That's a very cool Irish accent you have there." And afterwards, one of the American teachers came to me and he was like, I wasn't sure whether you were speaking English or Spanish, you know? It was that strong, you know? So even with the Americans, there's at times a language barrier, so to speak. I've learned to kind of, you know, adapt and keep it more neutral, but every now and then, if I'm speaking passionately about things, the Irish will slip out, you know? A few times the Americans won't understand or I'll have to rephrase, or they'll get the gist, but they'll say, I've never heard that word before, but I knew what you meant, you know?
Okay.
I was living with an American. Like, I'd be there on my laptop, mumbling to myself about things, you know, like navigating whatever sort of website, and I'd say an Irish word like, you know, for example, bollocks or something, if something doesn't go to plan. I remember I said that word one time, and all of a sudden when I say it, I hear my American roommate chuckling to himself. He was genuinely, you know, amused at the fact that I was using that word in a genuine context, not unironically, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
Because he's only had it as a word that, they would kind of take the piss out of, they would make fun of, oh, they say this over there. But to me, actually, they're being using it there in a genuine way, completely oblivious to that it would cause my friend to even laugh or at it or chuckle, was kind of a moment again where I thought, okay, yeah, this is another cultural exchange moment, another sort of exchange thing, even with the Americans, who obviously we speak the same language. So that was cool, I guess. And again, it kind of fueled my sense of being a representative of my country, because I speak my form of English very proudly, And if I'm exposing more and more people to that, whether they're Colombians or other native speakers like the Americans, I actually take pride in that. I think it's cool.
Okay, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
Those who understand will understand. Those who won't, you'll figure it out somehow. Okay. What's something that you're missing from home?
Well, as we would call it in Ireland, the crack, like the Irish way of just having...
Please explain that.
The Irish way of having a good time with your friends, with your family, having a laugh with them, and especially in our sort of pub culture. Obviously, we don't get that here. It's something that's unique to Ireland, so I kind of miss that. And then apart from the obvious things, friends, family, I also miss as well the seasons, because as I said, there's no variety in the weather up there in the north of Colombia, and it's just hot all the time, which I'm getting bored of, So that's another thing I miss. As well, in Valledupar, because it's not a massive city, the benefits of multiculturalism is something I miss. For example, we don't have a big array of foreign cuisine in Valledupar. That's something I miss from home. We do have some, but, for example, we don't have an Indian restaurant in the whole city, for example, and that's something that I would take for granted back home.
Okay.
When I'm back there in a more multicultural setting. So yeah, there's a few things there I miss. Some of my friends that live back home, I see them making plans with each other. I feel like I'm missing out, and I just love to join them for that evening. As well, though, more specifically, I've got 3 sisters and 1 twin brother. They all 3 of them live in Ireland, 1 of them lives in England and has done for a long time.
Is your twin brother an identical twin?
No, we're not identical.
Okay.
No. But my eldest sister has recently given birth to a nephew of mine, and obviously I haven't met him yet because I've been in Colombia. So in terms of if I had to pick one person, obviously, that I'm missing, even though I haven't met him, that would be the answer to actually meet my new nephew for the first time. I'm seeing all the photos, the videos, all that stuff. But yeah, definitely missing out on seeing him kind of grow up, especially in this phase of his life. But that comes with the territory, I suppose,
That's always one of the hardest part about living abroad, is when, as family changes, new additions and events, weddings, funerals, and not being able to be part of it. That's part of the sacrifice we make as internationals.
Yeah, that's a big, big thing, As I said, my sister, one of them lives in England and has done for a long time. She's got her family there and everything. If something's happening, she can pop over. It's Ireland, England, not that far. I'm on the other side of the world with a big time difference as well. And I look around as well and I see all the Americans at work. Yes, they're far away from their families, but at least they're in a similar time zone. Again, relating to, you said there are things that happen, funerals, this and that. My grandmother, God bless her, she's 93 now. So that is always on the back of my mind as well. God forbid I've seen her for the last time, I do plan on hopefully getting back relatively soon. She provides a lot of motivation,
That's definitely a hard part about living internationally. Now in Colombia, do you have someone who you're like, okay, this is my mentor, this is my go-to person?
I do have a very good relationship with my principal and school director. And both of those are kind of living similar experiences where, in fact, they're living more of the experience, because my principal, for example, he's American, the son of missionaries in West Africa, so he's kind of got an international upbringing as well. He speaks 3 languages, all that stuff. But he's been living in Colombia for almost 20 years now, and I always kind of look to him as a sign that, I might be having a hard time here or there, but this guy's done it for 20 years. He's now raising his family there. He's married to a Colombian, raising kids, all that stuff. So it can be done. What I'm doing is child's play compared to that guy. Okay. I've made a lot of friends. Other international hires. I've got friends from America, friends from Trinidad and Tobago, but also I've got, obviously Colombian friends. One of those people in particular pretty much count as one of my best friends in general now. I'm very, very glad to have him in my life. He speaks excellent English, so he's been able to be that cultural bridge, And as well, on a more personal level, long story short, as we all do, I've gone through a bit of a rough patch in the last year. In terms of what life throws at you, even apart from the fact of living abroad, it wasn't even to do with that. It's just other stuff happening in my own personal life. And funnily enough, he was going through something similar. So we were then put in a position where he would provide support for me, I would provide support for him. I think obviously through that sort of hardship, you really learn who your friends are, you really build strong connections, and you come out the other side with a great friend. He would be one person in Colombia that, I would consider one of my best friends. Super lucky to have met him, and I'm glad I did,
Mm-hmm. That's one of the great things about international living, is just meeting people from different cultures and seeing how you adapt to people from different cultures.
Absolutely.
Getting that whole other perspective.
Yeah.
And so now you're on summer holidays, you're on school break. What's your plans? Obviously, we're here in Cuenca, Ecuador, having some tea. And so what's the travel plan?
So, yeah, as you said, I am basically going to be traveling through other South American countries on this summer break from school. I started in Ecuador, next door neighbour to Colombia. Quito was great. I love Quito. Cuenca is really nice as well. It really strikes me as a livable city here. On Saturday, I leave for Lima, and I'm going to actually meet up with my brother. So he's going to be joining me on that trip. He's travelled from Ireland for it. And then I believe the plan is to bus down into Bolivia as well.
Okay.
There's been a lot of trouble there recently with the government and blockades and protests and all that stuff, but I think that's
part of the adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
That literally is part of the adventure. If you've never had to go through a blockade and carry your bags and walk for a couple of hours and get tear gassed, then you've missed out on the adventure.
Here in South America especially, yeah.
Exactly. And obviously, if you need any help in Lima and all these other places, Cusco, Machu Picchu, just let me know.
Oh, of course. Okay. I appreciate it.
And you said you're heading back after your adventure, your travel around. How long will you be traveling for?
I think it's going to be over a month.
But when does school start back up in Valledupar?
So our date to get back for like a week is the 27th of July.
Okay. I think I have only 2 questions left for you. So number 1 is, what would be something that you'd recommend to people who are thinking about this idea of maybe working abroad or even in the international school system? And what are things you think they should know before they go ahead and make this leap?
Generally speaking, if the language is not English in the country that you're thinking about moving to, it would be obviously helpful to learn the language. So get a move on that, And even if we're living in our own bubbles of the international school, meeting other foreigners and, in my case, Colombians, I would say half the Colombians speak Spanish, half of them don't. By learning the language, you're still opening up yourself to that other half of the Colombians in your school. Let alone, outside the school bubble, you give yourself so much more opportunity to actually integrate into the community, meet more people and friends outside of the school, and as a matter of respect as well, to actually show respect to the culture, Even if you're just going to be getting fine along in English in your bubble, learn the language, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, that's down to also personal development as well. I think it's a good form of personal growth to, arm yourself with that skill. So learn the language would be one piece of advice that I would give people, obviously. As well as that, I would say you have to go into things with a mindset of anticipating difficulty, especially in the initial phase. You have to be realistic, especially if you're making a jump like Ireland to Colombia, for example. Mm-hmm. You're not just staying in Europe, You're not just a short flight away from home or anything like that. You have to go in with a mindset of there will be hardship, there will be difficulty, but weather the storm and things do get better, So I think try to build that into your mindset. Anticipate the difficulty, Be ready for that.
Okay. Anticipating your return back to Valledupar, what's something that you're missing from Valledupar? You're like, I can't wait to get back for this. To your new home.
Yeah, I would say, again, I suppose that relaxed culture around where people are sitting around on plastic chairs, having a good time, blasting music, eating some simple but good food. Yeah, it's like, those are the simple things that you kind of take for granted. When you're traveling on the road like this, you lose that sort of stability, continuity. And so it makes you appreciate those simple things,
And what's your favorite food? What's the favorite thing that you've come to like in Valledupar?
You can't go wrong with arepas, obviously. And also patacones, I like. I've liked those two dishes a lot. I know there are things you can find in other parts of South America, but going to a particular spot with my friends in Valledupar, that would make it more special, you know?
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your journey and looking forward to getting back home to have your patacones. Okay.
Thanks for having me. This is actually a really pleasant surprise. I've not done something like this before, so it's nice. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of El Cafecito Travel Talks with Tony Lloyd. If you'd like to learn more about today's guest, check the podcast notes for links and information related to this episode. And if you have questions, stories, or topics you'd love us to explore in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Tony also helps independent travelers plan meaningful journeys throughout Central and South America, including cultural and community-based experiences. And if you'd like to support the podcast and help keep these conversations going, you'll find a contribution link in the podcast notes. Until next time, thank you for sharing a cafecito or tea with us, and safe travels wherever your journey may take you.